You're listening to Popcorn Unscripted,
the podcast where we dive into movies and TV shows with no scripts, no filters, just real talk and plenty of popcorn.
I'm Bailey.
And I'm Dylan.
We're here to talk about everything we love
And love to hate.
in pop culture. So grab your popcorn,
Sit back.
and let's get this show started. Alright, episode 3, Dylan. It's the third one of the trilogy.
Yep, and then we are going to discuss a different movie next time for episode 4.
Yeah, we've got a whole different movie planned for episode 4. Don't worry. So, Back to the Future Part 3. Let's talk about it, alright? So, how did Back to the Future 3 feel compared to the first two films? Was it a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy for you?
I feel like it was, honestly. Especially with how it ended and everything with the DeLorean being destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
Though, it is kind of odd, then he proceeds to make another time-traveling train this time.
Yeah, I'm more confused as to how he made a time-traveling train, when he couldn't even fix the DeLorean.
Yeah. Well, Grant, we have no clue how much time had passed since which Doc this is from. Because we know for a fact it can't be 85 Doc. He no longer had, unless
it would be 85 Doc.
Well, unless he used the parts from the DeLorean and that was in the cave to then retrofit onto the steam engine.
I don't think he would, because as we were talking about yesterday about the gas.
Yeah, but then it couldn't happen. Marty couldn't get to 85 to begin with to get Doc, or to
he couldn't go to
Doc.
1885. Well,
Yeah.
You've got me combobulated now.
Yes, I'm here. You didn't think I'm not messing myself up?
Unscripted!
Yay! But yeah, there's no telling which Doc this is from, because we know for a fact it can't be 85 Doc. So, and not because one reason why, the two boys, it can't be 85 Doc. They both look at least 5 to 6 years old.
Yeah, I was always confused about that, because I was like, because even Doc and Clara haven't aged. They look like they haven't aged a day.
True. But granted, only a short amount of time has probably passed for them. So, because of the fact of the kids being so young. But we have no clue of...
What if they're adopted?
I got an idea. Doc, no, that won't work. Unless maybe Doc had found a way to make his own version of that part that that was broken, and then he did use the 55, the DeLorean in the cave, but then immediately put it right back.
Then why didn't he use the gas?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
I'm still stuck on the gas thing.
Maybe he used up the gas. Honestly, there's no telling, but then again, we also gotta take into account what happened to the gas when it was struck by lightning.
Well, I wouldn't think anything would have happened to the gas, because it would be in the separate part it would be in the whole tank. And the lightning struck the top of it, where the power of the flux capacitor would have went.
Well, to be fair, we have no clue what all.
Which then again, with that lightning strike, I'm surprised it didn't just kill the whole car.
That's why I was shocked too. But then again, with how much electricity is coursing through it, and it's probably being pumped directly into the flux capacitor, that's probably what is keeping it from being destroyed.
Right.
Is the fact that it was in the circuits to go only to that flux capacitor.
Yeah.
But we have no clue what happened at all, honestly. Heck, we don't even know how much they had to fix on the car when they got in 55.
Well, we know they had to fix the tires.
We know
that was kind of obvious since the tires were dry rotted.
Yeah. We know for a fact they had to put more gas in it because of what you were saying.
Yeah, because with it being 70 years, the gas in that tank currently, if there was any at all, would have been water by that point.
Well, it wouldn't turn to water. It would just turn to sludge.
No, it would have turned to water.
Okay.
It would have turned to water.
I'm thinking of a different direction for some reason.
Yeah.
But either way, they would have to clean out the tank in order for them to actually put fresh gas into it.
Yeah.
Because of what all degraded inside the tank and everything.
Yeah.
But then again, we have no clue what all they had to fix on the darn thing.
Yeah.
Because after 70 years, even in a cave, there's probably some parts of that's going to be rusted over.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of the moisture in the air, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But who's to say that they didn't have to change out the fuel tank?
Yeah, the whole entire fuel tank.
Yeah, there's also another thing. We have no clue if they had to change out the whole fuel tank at that point.
Yeah. But we also don't know how much time passed from when they found the DeLorean in the cave to the point where Marty was sent back to 1885.
That's also true. Because of depending on how much rust and everything, not to mention how hard it was to get those parts at the time. Mm-hmm. Because we got to think, this is 55. This is not 85.
Yeah.
And the DeLorean was produced in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't even have the parts for that darn thing.
Yeah. They would have had to completely make those parts from scratch or have to find parts from a junkyard and kind of like Jimmy rig it.
Well, then again...
Or redneck engineer it.
Then again, the DeLorean is known for having a very crappy engine.
Yeah.
So regardless of what they did, no matter what they had to do, they had to change the engine out regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a crappy engine. But then again, Doc probably already did that himself, so it probably made it easier to fix it in the third movie.
Yeah.
But then again, we still have no clue what all was fixed on the thing.
Yeah. So that's another thing, too. Okay, so...
Because the fuel tank could have been rusted out.
Yeah, that's true. It could have been, completely rusted from the fumes that were in it that was left over from the gas that was inside the tank.
Especially with all the oil and all the transmission fluid, all that. There's no telling how many pipes that are replaced. Also, the lines and everything.
Yeah.
There's no telling how much damage after 70 years that did.
Or what was all dry rotted other than just the tires.
No kidding. I'm more shocked that the inside wasn't changed at all.
Well, the inside was contained. The only thing about the inside, it probably would have smelled very, very bad.
Yeah, that's very true.
Very musty.
A lot of air fresheners.
Yeah.
A lot of air fresheners. But then again, the reason why I say the fact that the inside hasn't had any damage is because what about the gearbox?
Well, it was closed. It was covered up.
Well, I'm talking about because the fact that it is a manual.
That's true.
So it rusting around where the actual shifter is. What's to say that moisture didn't get inside the vehicle at the time also and start deteriorating stuff inside out?
That's true.
Because how much it's probably rusted over and everything. But then again, we still, from what we saw, it still looked in good condition entirely.
Yeah, it really did. Other than the tires, it still looked in relatively good condition with it just having a tarp over it.
Yeah, which makes honestly no sense. You figure with all the moisture in the air from being in the cave, that at least some significant damage to
especially
metal.
Since you couldn't cover the undercarriage of the car.
Yeah. I just realized we're talking about a stainless steel car.
Oh.
It just now hit me. That's the whole reason why Doc chose a DeLorean. It's because of stainless steel.
Didn't he say that in the first film?
Yes.
We were here talking about all this stuff when the...
Welcome to Unscripted, everyone. This is probably going to be a running gag throughout the whole, our entire podcast, is we're going to go too in depth in something and realize, oh, wait, it's already been told the reason why. Unscripted.
Unscripted.
But then again, we don't know what all was stainless steel in the car.
That's very true. We don't know what all was
We know at least
steel.
the body is.
Yeah.
We don't know about the undercarriage.
Right. That's very true. That's very true.
God, it took me this long to realize stainless steel car. Of course, it is stainless steel. The top. No wonder it looks so pristine. It's it's not going to deteriorate.
Yeah.
If it does, it's going to be a very, very slower pace.
Yeah, it would be. Okay,
God.
so moving on from the car, Let's move on to the setting. How did the change from futuristic 2015 and present day 1985 to the Wild West affect the tone of the movie?
I think it did well. I don't know. Because we don't see 85 until the very end of the entire film in this one.
Well, that's true.
And heck, we only see it for a very short amount of time.
Which then again, I think we might be referring to like the present day 85 from like Biff's 1985.
That's true. Well, then again, we actually see it from a new perspective this time. Mm-hmm. We see more than Hill Valley.
That's very true. We see more of the outskirts. We see where the mine is and the different in the graveyard as well.
Not to mention, we're in a completely separate town.
That's
Hill Valley
true.
didn't have a train track.
That's true.
And everything. So it's like, we're actually seeing a lot more of this area now due to this third movie. Mm-hmm. Granted, we're still staying relatively close to Hill Valley, but then again, we have no clue how far Marty had to run.
That's very true.
That was kind of a downfall about the
well, actually, no, we know it's close because when Marty had run out of the cave from the bear, he immediately fell off the hill and into the fence. So there was already somebody living out there, which was Seamus.
Yeah, but we don't know how far he lived out from Hill Valley. Because all we see is him walking the tracks in the next scene.
Yeah, that's true.
And him, oh, by the way, here's Hill Valley.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. This is the town you're looking for.
Yeah, so we have no clue how far he actually had to walk. And that's not accounting for how far he had to run also in the end of the movie when he wanted to go back to collect Jennifer. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how far is he running and everything compared to everywhere else?
Yeah, that's very true.
Because we don't see a whole lot of area. Heck, the third movie is the only time when we see more than Hill Valley.
That is very true. We actually see a whole lot more of the outskirts of Hill Valley in the Wild West than we do in the first two films.
Yeah.
Which then again, in the first two films, Hill Valley is more developed than in the Wild West.
Mm-hmm. But the second movie, even back when we went to 1955, we only seen one entirely new area of Hill Valley, and that was where the tunnel is.
Yeah, that's very true.
Outside that, we're still stuck in Hill Valley,
because
regardless.
Biff was heading that way to go back home.
Yeah. So it's like, we're still, regardless, stuck in Hill Valley, wherever this is.
We don't even know where the border of it is. Mm-hmm. Where the
next town is or anything.
Yeah. So, didn't the historical setting of Hill Valley in 1985 feel authentic to the Wild West, or did it feel more like a typical Western movie? That's a toughie.
That is very tough.
That's a toughie.
Especially
because you want to say it's authentic, but at the same time, it does feel like a typical Western.
But granted, there's really not much to go off of when it comes to the 1800s, really.
No, that's very true, because there wasn't really a whole lot of documentation back then either.
Ironic enough, that was also brought up.
That was
in the second movie because of a little clip specifically that there's not much documentation about in the 1800s because Mad Dog Tannen shot the only person that was doing that at the time. Mm-hmm. So after that, there's been a lot of misconceptions of what all was going on because there's no documentation.
That wasn't in the second movie. That was the third movie.
No, I'm thinking the second movie. Oh, that's right. Okay, it was the third movie.
Yeah, it was the third movie when they went to... Because they had to go to the library to search up what happened to Doc.
Yeah.
Because they had discovered that Doc was killed on September 7th, so they were going to the library to see what was going on during that time.
I messed up because I was thinking of when... I thought they had gone to also find George's newspaper about him being shot, but no, that was that was in the third movie.
That was in the third movie
because Doc already had the paper on him about him being shot. So that's a little confusing.
Yeah, it is. But time travel. Yeah, it's time travel. So, how did the film blend futuristic time travel elements with the Western setting?
Heck, there wasn't a lot.
There wasn't really a whole lot. Because, well, no, there was the ice maker that Doc had made, which was way ahead of its time.
Way ahead of the time, but at the same time, everyone was acting like it was completely normal.
Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, that's just Doc. That's just Doc doing his thing.
But then again, we've known he's been there since January of 85.
So he's been there for
a good while.
For 3/4 of a year.
Yeah, so he's been there for a good while, so they know his antics by now. Because even the bartender mentioned about what happened in 4th of July.
What happened last time with the whiskey.
Yeah, the fact that it only took one to knock him on his butt. That was funny.
So funny. Just like, no, Emmett!
It did have this one did have gags in it and everything. And not to mention, it did tie well with the tense atmosphere with Doc being on a time limit for being shot, pretty much.
I will say, this one was way more lighthearted than the second one.
It really was.
Way more lighthearted.
And yet you figure it wouldn't, because Doc's life is on the line this time.
Yeah, which Doc's life was on the line last time, too, if you think about it.
Not as much.
Not as much as Marty's was.
But I say it was mainly Marty's father that was on the line, because if they didn't figure out this change, then they were stuck with this time period forever until they actually did find it.
Absolutely.
And granted, we have no clue what would happen to the two if they stayed in that alternate time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as ruthless as Biff is, there's no telling what he would do. Especially with the fact that they have the knowledge of everything that's happened in 1955. So what's to say Marty doesn't slip up and accidentally get himself shot?
Yeah. Which he technically almost did.
He did. He technically did slip up.
Technically.
He just didn't realize he slipped up because he wasn't there for the conversation that old Biff had.
So speaking of Marty, how did his character evolve in this film, and how did the Wild West impact him, do you think?
I think it did a major character development for him because of the whole chicken.
Which that's been an evolving thing throughout all three films.
Yes. Great. He still can't be being called chicken. But at least he now sees not to just take it and run with it. He knows to actually be smart about it. Hence why, instead of racing needles at the end of the movie, he threw in reverse. And he had no prior knowledge about what was going to happen if he did. Jennifer didn't tell him anything.
Jennifer or Doc didn't even tell him. He didn't know what was going to happen if he had raced needles.
But he only decided not to do that because of his actions in the Western, or in 85, after doing the same thing with Buford Tannen. Tannen. No, I said Tanner instead of Tannen. Tim. So after that, he realized, oh, I'm putting my life majorly on the line every time someone calls me chicken. Maybe at the same, I can still get angry about it, but I'm not going to let it get to my anger and let it cloud my judgment. Hence why he was smart to use the Western that he saw Biff watching in 2015, or not 2015, in the second movie when he went to the alternate 85. And used that as an idea, using the safe as body armor. Which he took a major gamble on that.
He did. Which then again, if you actually looked at the piece, it was a very thick piece of metal. But that lid came off of a furnace.
Well, I mean, like, the gamble is, he had no clue Buford was going to go for his heart. He could have gone for his head. He could have gone for his legs, his arms. He could have gone for anything. It was just a stroke of pure luck he went for the heart.
That's very true.
Granted, I think most of the time what they did in Westerns is really go for the heart, not the head. Because, I don't know why.
Always aim for the head. Yeah,
apparently that's a common thing in Westerns is aim for the heart, not the head. Go for the heart. That way they have a higher chance of surviving. But then again, he also mentioned about using the small gun that he was going to use to shoot Doc. That one shot to the heart, he would die in 2 days due to the leaking blood from it, that small puncture, and it kept getting bigger and bigger every time his heart pumped.
So it would basically tear his heart open.
Yep, and causing his entire body just flood with blood. Granted, I still understand the whole concept of only aim for the heart back then.
Yeah,
it feels like every Western, it was always aim for the heart. Nowadays, head, arms, legs, feet, everything. Everything's on the table. Heck, they even go for the groin most of the time.
Yeah, uncannily they do.
So it's like, what has changed between those to now that they decide, no, we're going to just say every part of the body's on the table, compared to Westerns where it says only the heart was on the table.
Yeah.
Or, well, hanging.
Yeah.
Those are the only two options. It was hanging or
Death
shot in the
by
heart.
shot. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting how much of showing someone getting killed on camera has evolved throughout history when it comes to movies,
Mm-hmm.
with the specific way they do it.
Mm-hmm. So, moving on from Marty, talking about the new character that is in the film, what do you think of the introduction to Claire Clayton, and how did her character impact Doc's story arc?
I honestly think it's a little rushed.
Yeah, I think so too. Because which of course they went with like the love at first sight thing, as usual typical love thing happens.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of felt like it was rushed because it happened over a period of a few days.
Heck, not even a few days. Heck, didn't he meet her pretty much on 2 days before he was about to get shot?
Yeah.
So it's like there was like a rushed love story.
Very rushed love story.
Grant, I think it was just a last minute thing.
Maybe it was.
Because it's kind of weird how they just did that, especially with the fact that Doc was throughout the.
It was more than 2 days.
Was it? It was
like, more than 2 days because
he gets shot on September 7th.
Uh-huh.
Marty came on September 1st. Second. Okay. Second.
And he finds him on September 3rd.
But they don't meet Clara until what? The 4th or 5th day?
Yeah.
So I mean that's still a rush story regardless, even with 3 days.
Yeah.
At the
2 or 3 days, yeah.
Given.
Yeah.
But granted, we know it was set up at the beginning of the entire movie because of the fact that it was written on the gravestone. But it's like, at the same time, the point when they introduced her to actually being the character and then him actually being in love with her, it was really sped up.
Mm-hmm. It really was.
They
didn't have any. There wasn't any time for their love to flourish.
Yeah.
There wasn't any time for that.
Especially with how Doc was mentioning about he's a man of science only. He doesn't deal with relationship stuff.
And that's one of the things that her character kind of changes in him. It's like, oh, I do have this ability to have a relationship with somebody and potentially have a family and stuff. Like, maybe this is the point where I know I'm meant for more than just my scientific abilities.
Granted, she also is a woman of science.
That is very true. So that was one thing that connected them both.
Yeah.
Was their love for astrology specifically.
Yeah. So they did have the connection, but at the same time, it does seem it was a little way too fast. Heck, maybe that's one of the whole at the end of the movie. Maybe that's one that's off.
Mm-hmm.
It's because there was supposed to be a lot longer time with that, but
maybe they just cut most of it out, or
because it seems, especially with the fact that the boys are only 5 to 6 years old, and by the looks of them,
they have to be. The eldest has to at least be 5 or 6.
Yeah.
The youngest at least maybe 4.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
So it's like but then again, that's also another thing. We don't know how much time has passed from Marty coming back to hit the 85 to Doc then showing up to collect Einstein.
Yeah.
We have no clue how much time has passed.
Yeah. But we know it's a couple of years at least.
Yeah.
We know it's been several years if the boys are already at least 6.
Yeah. And the parts that Doc needed for time travel wouldn't be made until 1940.
Right.
By his own words, when that part was broken on the DeLorean.
Right.
So even if we can't even make the argument that he took it off the other DeLorean because it's broken.
Because it's broken. Yeah.
So how much time has passed?
Yeah. That was a very, very open-ended thing right there at the end. I agree.
Especially how the sleek looking the train is compared to the DeLorean.
Absolutely.
It's more refined, more refurbished and everything.
But then again, Doc took what he learned from with the DeLorean and applied it to the train. He applied what he learned to the train, and then therefore he made the train better.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I think I like the train more than the DeLorean, honestly.
I can see why. The train is a really neat design.
It really is.
But at the same time, there's also another thing. He had to wait until the steam engine was rebuilt.
That's true. Either
Because
that
it's already
or he
destroyed.
bought his own train.
That too.
Or he stole it. Knowing Doc, he probably stole it.
Like he did the plutonium.
Yeah.
But, well, then again, we don't know how long it took for the train to be rebuilt to begin with.
That's true.
Because he may have waited until it was rebuilt and then bought it off the guy.
Maybe.
But also, we only see the one train, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And we only see the one guy driving said train.
Mm-hmm.
So is this the only train there is, or is there more?
Well, there more than likely is more than just the one train that comes through Hill Valley.
Yeah.
But, we don't know. But yeah, we don't know.
We don't know.
But going back to Doc and Clara's relationship, how does the film handle the concept of destiny and fate, particularly with their relationship?
Kind of 50-50.
Yeah.
Because they went for the cliche, like, love at first sight aspect. Mm-hmm. But then it felt like they needed some way of making it go faster. So they just decided, no, we're just going to rush it.
Yeah.
I think it needed more time, and it definitely was not going to take this whole movie to do that. Mm-hmm. They need at least a fourth movie.
Yeah.
So that's probably why they had to rush it, is because of the fact that they can only do 3.
Part 2 to the part 3.
Yeah. They could only do 3 movies, and that's how many each person was signed on.
Yeah, that's very true.
Each person was only signed on each individual movie themselves. They weren't signed up for a trilogy. They were signed in for 1 movie each.
But they all wanted to do it, though.
Yeah, they all wanted
were willing to do it.
Well, aside from George's character.
Yeah, aside from him, yeah.
I'm curious, though. Was it only the George McFly from 1955? Or is it or is it the same person from 85?
Well, it was the same guy in the first film.
Yeah. Because every time
they changed him in the second film, which is why they killed him off in the second film. And then in the third film, he was also different.
Okay.
Because we only see George for like a glimpse in the third film.
And yeah, that's at the end of the entire movie.
Yeah.
But it's like, did they have 2 separate actors for that specific portion in the first movie? Like, the original,
it's the same.
It's the same guy. So
yeah, it's the same guy at the beginning of the movie because he has the old makeup on, and then it's the same guy in 1955 when he doesn't have any makeup on, and then they put him in more makeup in the ending.
Gotcha.
So it's the same actor throughout the whole thing, just like it usually is, just like it was in the second film.
Yeah.
Just like it was.
Great. We only see the back of him. When they did show actually him.
Yeah.
We only see his back, and that's it.
No, we do see his front when he enters the doorway. He comes into the house. Mm-hmm. He's upside down.
I was talking about when we were in 1955.
Oh.
We only see his back, and that's it. But aside from that one scene where Marty's looking through the binoculars, and we do see his face for a glimpse.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think they just used the part of the first movie for that portion of it, and that's it. Mm-hmm. But then the rest of the time, it was just a double to like only his back, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Granted, there's not much you can really do with that.
Yeah, there's really not. So, how do we feel about the return of Biff's ancestor, Buford Mad Dog Tannen? Was it a fitting way to bring back the Tannen's family antagonism, or no?
It feels like the main antagonist in this entire town is just Biff.
Or just Biff's family tree in general.
Yeah, it feels like Biff's family is just torturing this poor town at every regard that they can.
Mm-hmm. Like, for real. But my question is, who reproduced with Buford Tannen?
We don't talk about that. We do not talk about that.
We don't talk about that. We don't know. We don't know. We don't talk about it.
The unknown. Who knows? Honestly, there's no telling.
So, speaking of Biff, so how did the dynamic between Marty and Mad Dog compare to the original Biff? Bill. Where did Bill come from? Where Biff
Bill,
come
not
from?
a science guy.
So how did it compare to the original Biff? I did it again. The original Biff in the first film. Do I need to say that again?
I might need to. I'm still laughing at the fact that you kept saying Bill instead of Biff. Heck, I almost said Biff instead of Bill there. Now we're both screwed up.
So, how did the dynamic between Marty and Mad Dog Tannen compare to the original Bill?
There it is again,
Biff
folks.
In the first film.
Good night, everybody. Okay, I get what you're referring to now.
Yeah.
It feels like it's the exact same person, but a little more sadistic this time.
Yeah, he's very aggressive.
Yeah, he's more aggressive than all the other Biffs. Well, I would say he's more on equal aggression as the 2015 Biff, but that was because he had a screw loose in his chip. Mm-hmm. In his head, apparently, from what Doc said. Mm-hmm. So maybe who knows? Maybe the glitch is because of the DNA from Buford.
Maybe.
We don't know.
We don't know that.
But it's weird how he was the most aggressive Biff Tannen that we've seen on screen, that is. Mm-hmm. Especially with the fact that he was the quickest to resort to violence, including killing off other people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because the dance scene is really prominent because the second that I'm trying to think of the word for back then. I'm just going to say his posse had noticed Doc dancing. He immediately pulls out a gun from his hat and goes to press against Doc's back early. Mm-hmm. Just to kill him. And it's like, this dude is way more dangerous compared to all.
He's hell-bent on doing what he wants.
Yeah, and that also explains a lot since we learned in the second movie, this is who Buford is. Mm-hmm. Because of the fact that he's killed so many people. Mm-hmm. And of course, the third movie, at the beginning, we know that it's because of him that there's no records of Hill Valley after a certain amount of time. Yeah. Due to killing the guy that was doing the records. Yeah. Because he painted Buford in a bad light. Mm-hmm. Which is ironic.
Mm-hmm. Very ironic. So moving on to the action and adventure of the film, how did the Western action sequences hold up compared to the time traveling action sequences in the first two films?
I would say it handled more so the Western aspect more than the time travel aspect. Because you only see the time travel part at the very beginning and the very end, and that's it. Yeah. You're only focused on the Western, and that's it. Yeah. Which I think is a good change of pace, honestly.
It really is. It kind of breaks up the monotony.
Especially because of how much time travel is played into the last two films. Well, the first movie only played into the first and ending as well. Mm-hmm. But then the second one, it was a constant thing. Mm-hmm. So it's nice that the third movie went back to the way the first film was and only have it at the beginning and only at the end. And that's it.
Absolutely.
But focus on what's going on in the moment of that time period specifically. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So I think it handled it very well.
So do you think the climax of the film was satisfying, especially the way they tied up the time travel plot in the end?
I would say so, because it definitely... Let's see, I don't know how to put this again. I'm just going to let it pass on to you.
I mean, honestly, I think it's very satisfying the way they ended up doing it. Because at the end, Doc saves Clara, and then Marty ends up going off, and then the train comes off the bridge, and it explodes in this big explosion. And then Marty's able to come back. And
Eastwood Ravine.
On Eastwood Ravine.
It's that Clayton Ravine.
Uh-huh. And then you have the DeLorean destroyed. Marty didn't have to do anything. It just got destroyed on its own. Didn't have to do anything. So he kind of upheld Doc's wishes, and that was that. Yep.
So I find funny how even after getting hit by a train, the license plate still spins.
Yeah. But actually, that's a good question. What does Doc do with the hoverboard?
That's a very good question. What did he do with the hoverboard?
That's a very good question.
Did he just keep it?
Here, sons, play with this futuristic thing that won't be invented for hundreds of years.
Well, seeing the fact that he's so casual with the time travel stuff with Clara, I think it'd be very casual with the boys, but it's like, what happened to the hoverboard after that?
Because I was thinking about it, because I was like, wait, wasn't the hoverboard in the car? No, it wasn't, because Doc was riding it. Yeah.
So, and heck, he didn't even have it with him in the train.
Yeah, he didn't.
So, what did he do with it?
That's a very good question. What happened to the hoverboard?
Because we know for a fact he can't be having that in 1885 at least.
Definitely not.
Especially the fact that it's like, what if the boys play with that and out in the open? Yeah. Or what's that happen then?
Yeah.
You kind of setting yourself up for something, Doc, by keeping that.
Yeah.
But then again, Marty kind of hid that very well.
Yeah, he did. Which then again, Doc could have just destroyed it.
That's very true. Seeing the fact that he was wanting to destroy the DeLorean, but then proceeds to make another time travel
device, train, thing.
What if he took it back to 2015?
He may have.
And then just left it somewhere. Instead, because the little girl didn't want it anymore after taking Griff's hoverboard.
Or whatever board that was.
It's like a bulldog.
Yeah, it was a bulldog.
But she took that instead of the one that Marty was about to give back to her. So maybe he just threw in the trash can in 2015.
Maybe.
And just left it there or something.
Yeah, that could be it.
But then again, that would take... But then again, he had the hover mechanic for the train. So he would have to go into 2015 to get the hover mechanic.
He may have.
Because we know it's damage on the DeLorean. You're thinking something. You're thinking something.
Would they even still use trains in that 2015?
That's a very good question. That is a very good question. Well, hold on. Well, how... No.
Because you're right. Doc would have had to go to that 2015 to get all of that hover stuff for the train. But...
Well, I'm sure they still have at least the train tracks at least somewhere.
Oh, well, yeah. They would have preserved that just as much as they did the clock tower.
Because the way I'm seeing it is Doc would have to use a new steam engine to turn into retrofit to become able to do that. But he would have to then travel to 2015 on those same tracks, get the parts for the hover conversion, apply it to the train, and then proceed to go drive on the exact same tracks to get back to 1985 to collect Einstein. Mm-hmm. And then just casually, you know what, we're going to show off this hover conversion that I implement onto the train at the end of the third movie.
Yeah.
Right in front of Marty, and proceed to fly this train up into the air.
Yeah. In front of like a bunch of people that were parked. Actually, no, never mind.
Yeah, they drove off.
They drove off by that point.
So it's like, Doc, why did you build this train to fly? What was the point?
What was the point of that?
But granted, this is hindsight because we're also forgetting that they used the train time travel in the animated version of this animated series.
See, I've never seen the animated series. I've never seen the animated series, so I wouldn't know.
But they don't have the DeLorean anymore in that. They only use the train as far as I'm aware.
So if they just use the train, then that means that would be like the part 4 that maybe they had written, but they didn't want to do it as another movie, so they turned it into an animated series instead.
Yeah, granted, I think they did want to do a part 4, but I don't think anyone really wanted to do a part 4 to begin with. So I think that's why they did the animated series route and just used that way. Mm-hmm. But granted, it's like, at the same time, without that knowledge, what was the point of the train? It was only to collect...
You may never know.
Because I don't understand the point of having the hover conversion. The hover conversion specifically. He explained he wanted to do the time-traveling train to get Einstein and also give a present to Marty. Mm-hmm.
But other than that,
what was the point?
We never know. We may never know.
It's like he wanted to flex, honestly, on Marty.
Yeah, he just like, you know what? Just gonna flex on you.
I'm gonna flex the fact that I just built this train to do the exact same thing that little DeLorean did.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because
it's like, he wanted to destroy it. So why proceed to build another one?
Yeah. So, moving forward. So,
I'm lightheaded.
So, does part 3 give a fitting and satisfying conclusion to the trilogy's exploration of time and destiny?
I believe so. Graham, we also don't know. We don't know if they want to do a 4th movie fully.
Yeah, that's very true. Even though they did do a series.
They did do a TV series and it was animated.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know if they were going to do another 4th live adaptation of the trilogy and make it the 4. But we don't know fully.
Which we don't even know if they would want to do a remake of the trilogy in modern day.
I don't even think they want to do that.
I don't think they would either.
Especially with Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox getting at their age.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're wanting to do
But it would be
remake.
with new people. Not necessarily Marty and Doc, but with a different set of people.
True. Seeing the fact that they are having to redo it. But granted, I feel like you can't have Back to the Future without those characters.
Yeah,
it
I
wouldn't
agree.
feel like it.
It wouldn't be the same.
It would
like,
have
they might could do cameos.
I was about to say they would. I think they would only be able to do that nowadays with the way they did Ghostbusters, specifically Afterlife, not that other movie.
Yeah, not the one with the women.
No, not that one. I was talking about after the second movie to Afterlife.
Yeah,
because that movie didn't really explore well. Honestly, it didn't feel.
Which I haven't seen the newer Ghostbuster movies either.
In my opinion, it didn't live up to the Afterlife, honestly. And yet, it's supposed to be the follow-up. I don't feel like it held up as a good sequel to Afterlife, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even though because it feels like some characters downgraded a lot, and it didn't make sense of why they downgraded.
Yeah.
So it's like they lost some character development, but they probably would have to do what Afterlife did and make it where it's new people. But at the same time, the older actors come in to do some kind of thing to help them.
Yeah.
But it'll be hard to do when it comes to a time travel aspect. That's going to be hard to do.
Yeah, I agree. So, how well did the movie embrace the Western genre while staying true to the Back to the Future series?
I would say it did a good job of portraying the old Western genre because of the way it was handled. Yes, they tried to make combine both elements of the Back to the Future stuff along with old classic Westerns.
Absolutely.
And that's a very stark contrast to each other. They don't go together. They very much so repel when it comes to that.
So it's like they definitely blended it together fairly well for the two genres to completely exist. Yeah.
I think that's also why they revert back to the way they did the first movie of only having a time travel aspect at the beginning and end of the movie. Is because of the fact that they clash so hard together. It's hard to do that.
I agree very much.
Hence why I think that's why they also had to do the arrow and the gas line and the fuel line. That way the DeLorean's out of commission for a good bit of the movie.
Yeah. So that way they would actually have a story.
Yeah.
To tell. But
instead of just, we're done.
Yep.
And the movie only lasts probably 30 minutes.
Pretty much. So to kind of wrap things up, how do you feel about the way the trilogy wraps up? Was it satisfying conclusion to Marty and Doc's journey through time?
Very satisfying, in my opinion.
I have to agree.
Granted, there's always going to be kinks in a story that leave threads hanging, like we've already discussed in all 3 episodes. We've pointed out a lot of kinks that doesn't make sense and leaves massive threads hanging. And they just never will be answered. We have no clue.
Yep.
So it's satisfying in a way that it does the story that it needs to, but also leaves stuff that you can theorize yourselves about.
Yeah. Which, that's what I like about movies in general, is like you can take this storyline, but you can always somehow divert it and kind of make it and kind of come up with your own story of what could happen, you know? It's like a what if series. It's just like that. Like, what if they did this? What if they did that?
Who knows? Maybe Marvel got the idea.
Maybe. So, were there any moments or scenes that you didn't enjoy or that felt out of place in the trilogy? And what was your favorite?
Honestly, I can't think of a scene that was out of place, honestly.
I don't either.
Especially in the third one, because it feels like every scene contributed story-wise intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because they learned from the very first movie and maybe part of the second one in some aspects when it comes to outtakes, that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because it feels like this one had less scenes that were cut that did not might have stayed in compared to the other two.
Yeah.
It felt like they learned from the other films that, hey, this part flows better if we leave this part in. Let's do that. It felt like the outtakes were more so just gag reels.
Yeah, for the most part.
Like a fly messing with Marty when he's on the ground and everything. Buford getting kicked in the shin and then started dancing.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like that was more gags than they were actual outtakes from like cut out scenes. My bad. So it felt like every scene contributed story-wise along with leading up to each other perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I think my favorite was probably when he used the furnace lid as a chest piece, as a bulletproof vest.
I agree. I love that scene.
I think that scene's actually very iconic to this movie, and it's really well played out, and I like it very much.
Grant, I think I have two scenes for this movie. It's that scene, and then Doc passing out from having one shot of whiskey.
Yeah, I agree.
Those two scenes are too perfect for me because the whiskey scene is way too funny because the man can't hold his liquor, and yet he builds this whole time machine and everything. Mm-hmm. And you feel like he at some point had to have some kind of alcohol at least to get through, like to stay awake or something, or to get a good amount of sleep. That way he didn't mess up something.
Absolutely.
But there's no telling when it comes to Doc if he's that. I'm trying to think of the word.
Lightweight.
Yeah, lightweight. That's what I was thinking of. I couldn't think of the word for some reason. If he's that lightweight when it comes to whiskey or alcohol in general, or that could be just for whiskey.
It might be just for whiskey.
Because the way bartender was it, they only had whiskey, and that's it.
Well, no, because the bartender did ask Doc if he wanted his usual, and Doc was like, no, I'm going to need something stronger.
That's true, but then again, he only used straight whiskey when he asked for stronger, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So maybe the other drinks are whiskey, but combined with something else.
Maybe.
But when Marty had asked for water, he said, if you want water, go out to the
horse trough.
Horse troughs, my bad. And get the water from there. And here we serve whiskey. Mm-hmm. But he didn't say anything else. Mm-hmm. Only whiskey. Mm-hmm. So it makes me think that they only had like whiskey as the alcohol, but had like different mixes behind him to make other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like, for example, old fashioned.
Yeah. That's
and stuff true. Like that. Cocktails and stuff like that. It's because most of the time those call for whiskey. But we don't know what all he was really mixing. Because we know that for a fact they ain't got soda. So
they don't have soda yet.
Yeah, so we know whiskey cola, that does not exist whatsoever.
Yeah, that's very true.
Leave it to Doc to come up with something for a mixture for that.
Then again, he did make ice.
True. Yeah, more likely this man could come up with some way to carbonate water.
Yeah, he would come up with carbonation somehow. Yeah. Because all it is pressure.
Yeah. And knowing him, if he can make basically a refrigerator, he could probably do that easily.
Oh, absolutely.
But granted, we also take into account what all he's working with.
That's true.
Because this is a massive machine that he had just for the one ice cube. Mm-hmm. So and that's a lot of work just for one ice cube.
Yeah, it really is though. Which then again, he was just using what parts he had.
Exactly. And we have no clue what all parts they had at the time. Granted, this is during the steam era. where they actually had steam engines. They weren't at the Industrial Revolution yet, but they were at the process of getting there.
Yeah.
So it's like, what all exactly did he have on hand, or what all did he have to actually physically build himself?
So now comes the big question.
Oh no.
What is your trilogy ranking? How would you rank the three movies from worst to best? We'll do it that way.
I knew you were going to hit me with this. I knew you were going to hit me with this. I had a feeling.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to go first? Okay,
You're asking someone who likes all three at the exact same level.
I mean, I can't be... I'm not really better because I like all three too. But honestly, I think I like two the best. And then it would be one in the middle. And then three.
Well, it also depends on how are we doing this ranking system.
Like, just what you feel like from best to worst. Like, what you think is best to...
Okay.
Like,
I was thinking, I don't know why, I was imagining, like, an imaginary tier list in my head for some reason from A to F.
Yeah.
Or
we could do a tier list if you wanted to.
I don't know.
It'd be a very short tier list. But, yeah.
I don't know why I'm thinking this right now.
So, what is your rankings, Dylan? I already gave mine.
I know. I would say I would actually put the second movie a little lower than the first and second one.
Yeah.
And the only reason why is because of the fact that the amount of CGI that they had to use for that did not age well. Mm-hmm. And some parts of it can easily get confusing of what the heck is going on compared to the other two. Because I felt like the first movie had a good flow along with every scene leading into each other and it not being as confusing of what all is happening. You could actually not pay attention for a little bit and still know what's going on.
Yeah.
While the second movie, you can't physically do that. You have to be paying attention all the time in the movie that way to understand what in the world is happening. Because you could tune in like them being in 2015, you tune out, next thing you know, that all of a sudden Biff is ruler of Hill Valley and it's like, what just happened?
Like, what the heck just happened? Yeah.
You have to be paying attention in the second one to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And third movie, I'll say you have to do kind of a mix and match.
Yeah.
Because you can tune out while at the same time you kind of have to understand pay attention a little bit.
Yeah.
To know what they're having to do, like the arrow, them blowing out the fuel injector and all that stuff. You have to be paying attention to what's linked into those points, and along with, hey, Doc has made these special type of logs to get the train up to the speed. So along with the point of no return, when Marty points it out when they go past it at the end of the movie. So, I think I'll have to do that, honestly. Put the first and third movie at the same level, but have the second movie a little bit lower. Because of the fact that you have to be paying attention the entire time, and most of the CGI has not aged well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you heard it here, folks. Well, that's the Back to the Future trilogy for you.
Yeah, and... There is no telling what all movies we'll also be able to cover after this.
Oh, yeah.
Because we do have a somewhat list of different movies we want to talk about, but we will have to come up with which ones each episode.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But we're not going to spoil... It depends. We might spoil what we're going to talk about next time, or we might not. It really just depends.
Definitely not. I am not giving you guys anything. It's all a secret. It's a secret.
It might have something to do with Pedro.
Well, that could be a wide range of movies. He has a whole filmography. Now you're just giving me an excuse to talk about it.
Crap.
That's all for today's episode of Popcorn Unscripted.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow us on Twitter at PopUnscripted.
And let us know your thoughts or any suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
And if you'd like to support the show, check out our donation page.
Your support means a lot and it helps keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep your popcorn close.
And your movie critiques closer.
Thanks for listening to Popcorn Unscripted.